Welcome, Mike, and thanks for doing the interview.
Okay.
So, Mike, a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Oak Park, Illinois, Oak Park Hospital. I grew up, for the most part, in a suburb called Elmwood Park, Illinois, down by O'Hare Airport.
Right. And where'd you go to high school?
Holy Cross High School in River Grove. Had a very good education. It was the Holy Cross Brothers, and if you failed to learn properly, you'd get smacked in the head. Unfortunately, it's closed down now.
Okay, and the Vietnam War was going on when you were, graduated high school and everything like that. Prior to getting drafted, what were you doing?
Once I graduated from high school, I went to junior college, Triton Junior College in River Grove. But I only went for about a couple weeks or maybe a month. It was too much like high school. And the fact is, all my friends had gone in the service, either drafted or joined. So I just decided to go too.
Okay, and so did you join or were you drafted?
I was drafted, but I joined.
Okay.
I'll explain that one.
Okay.
I went down to my local draft board, which is in Des Plaines, Illinois, and I had them push my draft number all the way up.
Really?
Volunteered for the draft.
Okay.
Once I did that, and they had a hard time believing anybody would do that, but I did it. I think it was only about 30 days later when I got my induction notice.
Oh, okay.
Went very quickly.
So you got your induction notice and you hopped on the plane?
Well, we were inducted downtown here on Canal Street, I think it is.
At the AFI Center down here in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. And that was 13th of February, 68. And we were put on a plane to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which is where I took basic training. After Fort Leonard Wood, many of us were sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana,
Okay.
For infantry training. So I was originally an infantryman. I graduated Fort Polk Infantry.
11 Bravo?
11 Bravo. Went through Tigerland, the Mike Vietnamese village, the whole deal. Must have been about a week before graduation. The word came out. It was a rumor, but rumors in the Army.
Are all true. But.
Yeah, all true. Rumor came out that we were all going to be sent to Fort Hood. Nobody was quite sure why. But a couple of days before we graduated, in fact, we all started getting orders for Fort Hood. So they gave us a leave, 2 weeks or 30 days, whatever you wanted to take. And then they sent us to Fort Hood, and the vast majority of us were converted from 11 Bravo to 11 Echo tankers.
Yes.
It was on-the-job training, but it was good training. We fired the tank tables. We went on quite a few field problems. I wound up in the 2nd Armored Division. A lot of my friends wound up in the 1st Armored, some more in the 2nd Armored. In late November of 68, most of us, you're truly excluded, most of us got orders for Vietnam. And so everybody got to go home on leave prior to going to Vietnam. I was the only one left in our battalion that had come from Fort Polk. My orders for Vietnam came down a week later.
Okay.
So I wound up having to clear post all on my own instead of being with a whole bunch
of the other guys?
Yeah, with all the other guys. But I wound up meeting most of those guys at the Oakland Army Depot on the way to Vietnam.
So you went through your tank training at Fort Hood, Texas with the 2nd Armored Division?
Yep.
Okay, and what type of tank were you on?
M60A1.
The M60A1?
Yeah, and they trained us in all the positions except tank commander, but we were all trained to drive it, loader, obviously, and gunner. And in fact, I was a gunner on a tank at Fort Hood when we went through the tank tables. So.
Okay. And you said you went through the tank tables and you went out to Fort Hood in the field training exercises?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Pretty vast area, pretty big area?
Huge. I think Fort Hood is the largest Army installation in the United States, and it's one of the largest in the world.
Yes, it is pretty big and everything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you leave Fort Hood?
December of 60.
Or when did you arrive in Vietnam, I guess I could say?
I arrived in Vietnam in December 68, so I left Hood also in December 68. I think I had a 2-week leave. I arrived just before Christmas of 68 for my first tour.
Okay. And you said you went to Tigerland with with some Vietnam training as an infantryman and everything like that.
Exactly.
Any special tank training before you went over to Vietnam to do anything for the tankers? Nothing.
Nothing.
But what you had done before though probably helped you out
Well, the infantry training,
over
it
there.
makes
probably
you
helped
familiar with M2 machine guns and M60s,
sense.
all that kind of stuff.
It made you a little familiar with how Vietnam was going to look and everything like that too when you went down the Tiger Land.
Quite a
Give you
bit.
a little idea.
Yeah, and being at Fort Polk's an advantage because of the heat and humidity. Very similar climate to
There you
Vietnam.
go. Heat, humidity, rain.
Rain, snakes.
Yeah, there you go. That's true too.
Yeah.
So you arrived in Vietnam just before Christmas of December '68.
Yep.
And where did you arrive?
We flew into Bien Hoa, a huge Air Force base, and it was right next door to Long Binh, which was the Army's headquarters in Vietnam.
Okay.
Also a very, very large logistics base.
Okay. Got the pen.
It's
you got
not
the
shown
marker.
on here, but it would be right, here's Bien Hoa, Long Binh is right next to it.
Okay.
So it's right here. Here's the pointer. There's Bien Hoa,
Right.
and Long Binh's right next to it.
Gotcha.
It's right next to Saigon,
Okay.
very close to Saigon. So we flew in there, and you stay at Long Binh for 3 or 4 days awaiting orders for your unit to be assigned to a unit. And after about 3 days, my orders came down, and I was assigned to the 25th Infantry Division. And so we were off to a place called Cu Chi. Cu Chi, I don't think is on the map, but it would be just a little bit west of Saigon, just
Okay.
a few miles.
Gotcha.
And once we got to Cu Chi, we went through in-country training. There was I think it was a 4-day course for in-country training to Vietnam.
Okay.
It included courses on mines, booby traps, night ambushes, infantry tactics, all that kind of stuff. Didn't matter that we were tankers; we still had to go through it.
Right.
Once we were through with that course, then we were assigned to individual units, and I was assigned to 2nd Battalion, 34th Armor. We were trucked over to our battalion headquarters, and at that point I was assigned to B Company, Bravo Company. Bravo Company was not at Cu Chi. In fact, Bravo Company wasn't even in 25th Division anymore. Bravo Company had been OPCON, put under operational control
Right.
of the 1st Infantry Division. Charlie Company, 2nd to 34th, was under operational control of 101st Airborne.
Really?
Yeah, so the Airborne actually had a tank company.
Okay.
So I had to wait a day or two, and then a truck was sent to pick us up at Cu Chi. There were several of us, and took us back to Lai Khe to the 1st Infantry. And Lai Khe is not on this map, but Lai Khe would be right about here, just north of Saigon, probably 20 miles.
Okay.
And then Lai Khe was, the base camp Lai Khe was actually inside a rubber plantation, an old rubber plantation. So it's kind of a pretty and shady place.
Oh yeah.
It was located directly on Highway 13,
Okay.
just north of Bencat.
Okay.
There I hooked up with B Company. And when I first got there, they needed a fuel truck driver. And I don't know how this happened, but somehow it got put into my records that I was trained to drive a 5-ton diesel truck.
Really?
That's not true, of course. I suspect what happened is at Fort Hood, there must have been an inspection come up, and they needed so many drivers to show the inspector.
Oh.
And so my records got, I became a truck driver, magically. At any rate, they had me driving that truck, and that only lasted about a week. And I went to the executive officer, and I told him, I said, yeah, I don't know how to maintain this truck. I'm not very good driving it. I don't want to drive it.
Right.
I said, okay. Then they made me the driver of the CO's track. The CO's track was an M113,
And 113 armored personnel carrier.
armor personnel carrier.
Okay.
It was set up in ACAV configuration,
Okay.
armored cavalry assault vehicle.
Right.
So 2 M60s and a 50 caliber. I drove that for probably a couple of months. Decided that was not a smart way to make a living, driving around on a 113. So I asked to be put on a tank. So they put me on Bravo 66, which was the commanding officer's tank,
Okay.
headquarters tank. A tank company has 3 line platoons of 5 tanks each and 2 tanks in headquarters platoon.
Right.
So I drove the CO's tank for probably, I don't know, probably 3 months, something like that.
Okay.
And then there was a shortage in one of the line platoons, 3rd platoon. So I went over to 3rd platoon. And I started out as the gunner on 3-1, Bravo 3-1, which was the lieutenant's tank,
Right.
platoon leader. And when he's on the tank, it's 3-6. When he's not on the tank, it's 3-1.
Really?
Yeah. 6 indicates it's a command vehicle, but if the lieutenant's not on it, it's 3-1. In fact,
Oh,
the
okay.
bumper number painted on the tank is 3-1.
Right.
But the minute he climbs on it, the lieutenant, it's 3-6.
3-6.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a great lieutenant, Lieutenant Breedlove, great guy. Still see him at 34th Armor
you?
reunions. Still do.
Outstanding.
We stay in touch.
Where does he live? Where does he live, Dean?
Breedlove,
Yeah. Not in Illinois.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but one question quickly though, you arrived in Vietnam. Eventually, you made it to B Company,
Right.
but they were taking you as a tanker. They weren't taking you as an infantryman
Oh, correct. Yeah.
because you had 2 MOSs.
Yep.
So they looked at 11 Echo and didn't look at 11 Bravo then.
Right. Right.
Okay, so you must have been happy with that, I think.
I was very happy about that. I wanted that 11 Bravo kind of hidden.
Off to the
I
side.
wasn't going to advertise that. And in Vietnam, it was, my experience was all the armor units were shorthanded.
That's what
Always.
I've heard. That's what
Yeah.
I've heard.
And in fact, in our platoon, just about all 5. Yeah, I don't think anybody had a 4-man crew in our platoon,
In the whole platoon?
in the whole platoon. Nope.
Okay.
In fact, when the medic rode on your tank, it was like a bonus because it was a 4th guy to help you pull guard at night.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So, B Company was OPCON, the first ID for many years and everything like that.
Yeah.
So that company commander, your company commander, ran the armor operations for B Company with that unit. There was no battalion commander over your company commander.
Yeah.
You guys operated by yourself,
Yep.
getting supported by the 1st Infantry Division unit and everything like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a strange situation because I don't want to get too far off the track, but
No, you're fine.
in 25th Infantry Division, you could wear what's called a bush hat, a boonie hat.
Oh, the boonie hats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1st Infantry, that was against regulations. You had to wear a baseball cap type of thing or a helmet, of
Or
course,
steel pot.
or steel pot or a CVC, one of the 3.
Right.
But because our unit, Bravo Company, we belonged to 25th, but we were attached to the 1st.
Right.
So Bravo Company took advantage of belonging to the 25th, and we ran around wearing the boonie hats, even though we were in like, hey, 1st Division
First
base
Division
camp.
area. Wow. Okay, so you were did the company commander's tank full up all the time? Did he have a full crew all the time?
Nope.
No, he still ran, company commander still ran a 3-man crew at times too.
Yeah, well, of course, the company commander was never on his tank. He stayed on his command track when we were operating as a company.
So when you were out in the field, the company commander was in his command track?
Yeah.
So you ran Bravo 6-6 then? If you were the gunner.
Well, I was the gunner, so for a while, yeah.
So you did when you were out in the field or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, then you went to the 3rd platoon, you said?
Yep.
What tank did you go to?
3-1 originally.
Oh, 3-1
So I was
originally,
the
right.
gunner on 3-1. And then, I don't know, a few months into that, I wound up on Bravo 3-3.
Okay.
And I had 3-3 until I went home.
Okay, so when you went to Bravo 3-3 as the gunner, or did you make tank commander at that
Tank
time?
commander. Tank commander.
Okay, so you're TC of Bravo 3-3.
Yep. By then I made Spec 5 about halfway through my tour, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So
And, okay, that's fine. And can you just, on the map right there, just a little bit of the area of operations?
Sure.
You got Lake K.
Yeah, Like was right about here. This is Highway 13. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay.
The extreme northern end of Highway 13, it ends at Lac Ninh, which is right on the Cambodian border.
Okay.
We did a lot of convoy escort from Lai Khe to just north of Thunder 3, which is about half the way to Loch Ness.
Okay.
And 11th Armored Cav typically picked up the convoy just north of Thunder 3 and took it the rest of the way up to Loch Ness.
Gotcha.
Over in this area, northwest of Lac is the Michelin rubber plantation.
Gotcha.
We spent a lot of time in there.
Okay.
Right next to the Michelin, just east of the Michelin, between 13 and the Michelin, was a place called Warzone C.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time in Warzone C.
Okay.
Just south of Warzone C is a place called the Iron Triangle.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time in there too.
Okay.
To a lesser extent, we worked occasionally at a firebase called Firebase Gym, and that was southeast of Lac, just a couple miles.
Okay.
And what we did there is we picked up a convoy at Firebase Gym and escorted it to Phuc Vinh, which is a 1st Cav base camp.
In their area?
Yeah. So we didn't just run convoys for 1st Infantry. I mean, we escorted convoys supplying
That whole area.
a lot of different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as your company was attached to the infantry, what infantry units did you work with?
1st to the 16th,
Okay.
mainly.
Yes.
We also worked quite a bit with Charlie Company, 2nd to the 2nd.
Okay.
Both those units are mechanized.
So mechanized over there, they had 113s and everything like
Yeah,
that.
113s, typically set up an ACAV configuration too, 260s and a 50.
Okay. And so, how about the tank? The M48A3 is what you were on in Vietnam and everything like that.
Mhm.
Now, you trained on the M60A1 and you
Right.
got to the M48A3. Was there a big difference, though?
No, the biggest difference, the M48A3 had a 90 millimeter gun.
Right.
The M60A1 had a 105.
Right.
But the engines, it might have been the same drivetrain, if not very similar.
They were just about. The M48A3 was diesel. It was the first diesel M48 series tank, so it should have been just about the same engine, maybe a little modifications with the M60.
The
And-
suspension components were all pretty much
All
the
the
same.
same.
Steel rolled wheels on the M48, aluminum on an M60.
Okay.
Um,
And you were, when you first got to Vietnam, you were the you were the truck driver,
yeah,
but then you went to the gunner, the company commander's tank,
right. Then the
And-
3-1.
then 3-1. Now, I'm just to remind myself again, for the company commander's tank, were you the driver on that?
I was the gunner.
You didn't drive for the company commander on his tank or anything like that? Okay.
In fact, I don't think I ever drove a tank in Vietnam at all.
I was going to ask you that too, but that's fine. But you did drive the 113 a little bit.
Yeah.
Whoops. And so you made gunner, or you were the gunner on 3-1, then you made tank commander on Bravo 3-3.
Mhm.
Do you have any names on your tanks? Did you call them anything?
Yeah, some of the guys had names.
It wasn't company wide or anything like
No, and ours never had any names on it. I mean,
that. Okay. So how was the M48 in the jungle, on the woods, in the roads? Like how in the jungle, really?
yeah,
That must have been rough.
yeah, it was relatively good in the jungle, but the problem was we were almost always operating with infantry units,
Okay.
and they didn't have a real good feel for what a tank could and could not do.
There you go.
They thought a tank could just drive into the jungle and flatten everything in front of it, and of course you can't do that. If you hit a big enough tree and knock it over and keep going, you're going to have the tank belly up on a tree stump. And it'll be like
Right.
a dead bug. They didn't understand how much maintenance is required on tanks.
Okay.
Frequently, we didn't get a chance to clean the air filters on the tanks.
Oh.
Couldn't check the oil often enough. And just using the tanks for busting jungle is just not a smart thing to do. They're not designed for that.
Okay. But you were able to get through. Did you throw track at all?
All the time. All the time.
Did you?
Yeah, we got real good at putting tracks on and off.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So you had your M88 crew with you, following you too, and everything like that, right?
Not normally we didn't.
You did not?
No, usually the M88 stayed back in the rear.
Okay.
We usually didn't have any lift capability in the field.
Could they be called forward if you
could.
needed them?
Yeah, they could.
So did you do a lot of self-recovery, or just the tanks recovered them, helped each other out?
Self-recovery. We carried a couple of tow bars
Right.
within the platoon. We all had tow cables.
Right.
if we needed to lift a pack or something like that, sometimes we get the infantry usually had a cherry picker with them.
Oh yeah.
So as long as we had the
5.78.
as long as we had the appropriate sling, we could pull a pack with the cherry picker. So most of that stuff we could do in the field on our own.
If you got stuck in the jungle, you didn't throw a track or anything. Someone just got stuck maybe a little bit like there. You'd have another tank pull you out and everything, right?
Oh yeah, there was a day out by Firebase Gym
Okay.
when they told us to go out and do a recon of an area, and we had to cross what we thought was a dried up rice paddy, and it wasn't.
Uh-oh.
And before we got stopped, the first 3 tanks were belly up in the mud.
Oh boy.
And so the other 2 tanks hooked up to the one tank in line and pulled him out. And then those 3 tanks connected more tow cables, and one by one we got them out.
Wow. Is somebody pulling security while this is happening and
No.
everything? You just got to get
It
them
was
out.
it was kind of an open area, so
Okay, gotcha. But you
Right.
just kind of pull them out as soon as you could, though, obviously, and everything like that.
before it got dark.
Okay, so a little rough going through jungle. Did you go through kind of woods? Is there a big difference where you were at, or just kind of woods and jungle was kind of the same thing in that area? I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but
Yeah, I'm gonna.
you weren't in
What?
marsh areas or anything, were you? Or
What kind of marshy?
marsh or anything like that? No.
You know, a rubber plantation would be an example of woods
Okay,
to us,
okay,
and that's trees planted in rows.
okay.
Jungle is just vines and trees and every kind of vegetation you can imagine, all tangled together.
Okay, so in a lot of the jungles, maybe it was hard ground, though?
Oh yeah,
Okay, you stayed away from the marsh areas and
Yeah.
as best as you could and everything like that.
Yeah.
What about the roads? Easy on the roads? You had dirt roads, right?
yeah. We had what's called laterite roads.
Okay.
It's red clay.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, you get a lot of that in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot down there.
Yeah, the Highway 13 was a well-maintained, hard-packed laterite road.
Gotcha.
And in fact, on my second tour, when I went back down there again, it was blacktop.
Oh, they blacktopped
Yeah,
it.
they blacktopped it.
Did you feel more safer on a hard road than going through the jungle for any mines or anything like that?
Yeah, the roads had been defoliated on both sides, so there was no way to hang anything in any trees because there weren't any trees.
Gotcha.
In the jungle, you had to be careful.
Gotcha. Okay. What about any advantages or disadvantages with the tank in Vietnam? Good main gun, good engine overall.
The
You
big
said you talked
advantage-
about the air filters too or anything like that, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, the air filters on a 60 and a 48 are pretty much the same.
They are.
So, but you have to keep them clean.
Right.
If you're in a dusty area, you start losing power on the engine.
Okay, so in Vietnam, you really had to keep them clean then, didn't you?
All the time. All
Gotcha.
the time.
Okay.
The big advantage the M48 had over the M60 was the ammunition that was available.
Okay.
An M60, to the best of my knowledge, never had canister ammunition available
Correct. It did not.
or beehive.
It had beehive.
It did?
Yes.
Okay. Right. I never saw it at Hood.
Okay.
In 1st Infantry, the main ammunition we used was canister.
Okay.
We called it black can. The round was black.
Right. It looked like a shotgun shell, right?
did.
Like a
big
90 millimeter shotgun shell.
Yeah.
What was inside of it?
Bunch of pellets, I think 2,800 steel. I thought they were brass for a long time, but steel.
Okay.
Steel pellets about 1/4 of an inch long and about the diameter of a number 2 lead pencil. Excuse me.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that was the main thing we used. It was muzzle action, no fusing.
Oh, gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
So you used canister and you used the flechettes? I mean the anti-personnel, which is flechettes.
Well, canisters anti-personnel too.
Yeah, but did you use the beehive rounds over in Vietnam?
We did, but never in 1st Infantry. In fact, I never even saw a beehive round until I got to 10th Armored Cav up in the Central Highlands.
Oh,
We just didn't see it down south.
okay.
Canister and some HE.
Okay, so with 234 then down in first ID, it was canister
Canister.
and HE, high explosive.
Once in a while.
What about smoke?
White phosphorus?
Yeah, white phosphorus is what I mean.
Never.
Never.
Never. I don't even think we carried it.
So you carried 95% canister,
Well,
5% HE, 90, maybe 90-10.
Well, we carried a few heat rounds too, just in case.
You carried a few high explosive anti-tank rounds?
We did, just in case they came with tanks. But,
Okay.
they didn't, so.
Okay, and you said the canister was a muzzle shot. There was no fuse on it or anything like
Right.
that. So when you pointed it and fired, it just blasted out everything right there.
Exactly right. In fact, we never did this, but we heard stories that some units, if they ran us into some really dense jungle, they would fire a canister round to loosen it up.
Loosen it all up.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I don't know if how much true it is or how it worked or not.
We wouldn't waste a canister round like that, but
There you go. So that was one of the good advantages was the ammunition you had though with the canister and everything like
yeah,
that.
yeah. And the other big
9mm.
advantage, I think I already mentioned, an M48 had steel suspension.
Yes. Steel road wheels, you mean?
Yeah, steel roll wheels versus aluminum on an M60. And then crashing through the jungle, I don't think that aluminum would have done too well.
Oh, really?
Probably would have bent them.
So the steel road wheels and all that was much better, that you think was much better in that type of terrain and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
But I think the main reason that we used M48s in Vietnam is the Army probably had too many of them.
Well, there were plenty of them. And the M60 came out in 60-61. The M60A1 came out in 61-62 time period.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were being sent to Europe. I think that was part of it. And they said, let's just send the M48s to Vietnam.
Yep.
That's my guess. But I think that's part of it and everything like that.
Yeah,
And how about the engine overall? Was it pretty well?
very good.
Very good overall
Great engine, great transmission.
Good
Yeah.
transmission.
To take the pounding they took, yeah, very good.
Very reliable and everything like that.
Oh, we used to escort convoys, and you could get an M48 up to 30 miles an hour on a hard packed
Yeah.
road, so
Right.
that's pretty good.
And on your tank or whatever, either of the tanks you were on, did you do anything special to attack better or protect yourself better? Did you move weapons around or anything like that?
Yeah, there was one other thing that I just remembered yesterday that I don't think I told you about, but when you got an M48, one of the first things you did is remove the gunner seat,
Really?
take it out, and we'd pile ammunition on the third floor.
Small arms ammunition?
50 caliber ammunition
50 caliber.
for the M2,
Okay.
and some 7.62 for the coax.
Okay.
That also acted a little bit as mine protection.
Yes.
And sometimes some of the tanks would put sandbags also on the third floor.
Okay, so you had sandbags on the third floor.
Some tanks.
What about
did.
the driver? Did you have sandbags under the driver?
No, the driver didn't want to do anything to block the escape hatch, the bottom escape hatch.
That's correct. He's
so
got the
no.
escape hatch. You're
Yeah,
right.
he didn't get any sandbags. The other thing we did is on the outside of the turret, on both sides of the turret, we hung as many track blocks as we could,
Okay.
both down from the rail
Right.
and up from the rail,
Okay.
to try and cover it all. And the object there was to detonate any RPGs or recoilless rifle rounds before they actually hit the turret, so they couldn't penetrate.
Okay, so an RPG is a rifle-propelled grenade.
It's a Russian design.
Kind of like, almost like an American bazooka, but it's reloadable.
Yeah,
It's just a simple way to explain it.
Yeah.
And then they also went up against recoilless rifles too.
yeah, 75s usually.
Okay. So you had sandbags on the third floor,
Some.
and you had the track on the side. And I'm not an engineer or anything like that, but I don't know if it made it any heavier, any more strain on the engine though. Maybe not enough to actually do any strain on the engine or anything
I
like
don't
that.
think so. Yeah.
Now, since you had that extra protection, did you guys drive on top of the tank? I'm sorry, the driver drove, and did you guys ride on top of the tank?
Yeah, everybody rode up on top of the turret. Tank commander rode on the hatch, commander's hatch, which was open.
Right.
The loader or gunner rode on the
Loader's
loader's hatch, which was open. And on the rare occasions when you had a four-man crew, the fourth guy would be on the back deck, hanging onto the bustle rack, or even sitting in the bustle rack.
Okay.
So, but that was kind of rare.
So you felt more comfortable with the guys on top of the tank, even though you could be shot at from the trees or something like that?
Well, make no mistake, after the first shot, the tank commander would be down,
Right.
and so would the gunner,
Okay.
who would actually be loading.
Okay, and just to back up for a second, when you were on the commander's ACAV, did you have sandbags under that too?
Oh yeah, an ACAV, the entire floor, all the ACAVs
Okay.
had multiple layers of sandbags covering the
Okay.
entire floor.
With the driver too and everything?
Yeah, yeah,
All right, and did those crew members ride on top of that also?
yeah.
All right, so the commander's on top, his gunner's on top,
Yeah.
and obviously the driver. When you drove that, again, back to the ACAV, Were you inside the ACAV or did you drive it from on top with extended sticks?
We drove inside,
Okay.
but I have seen pictures with the extended sticks.
I have seen that also. I've actually seen a video of with the driver on top with the extended sticks and everything like that.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
You didn't do that. Okay, so good. You definitely added more protection to the tank and everything like that. And what about able to fire better? Like again, did you move the 50 cal? Did you do something to any outside weapons or?
Yeah, the M48 design, and the M60 for that matter, is designed for a cupola-mounted 50 caliber machine gun.
Right.
I don't recall if the M48 set up for an M2, or the M60 is an M85, I know.
Right.
At any rate, the ammunition belt is only 90 rounds if it's cupola mounted.
Okay.
That's all you can fit.
Okay.
And it takes forever to reload that thing.
Yeah.
So no, we didn't use cupola mounted machine guns. We welded cut down tripods, M2 tripods.
You cut down the M2 tripods.
We cut down an M2 tripod and
Yeah.
welded the 3 legs, which are now only this long, to the top of the turret, actually the top of the cupola. And so the 50 was outside the cupola, and the regular 100-round
box.
box of ammo,
Right.
and you could reload the thing in seconds because it was up top where you could get at it.
So you welded the tripod on the 50 cal on top of the cupola, not in front of the cupola.
No, on the cupola.
On the cupola.
Yeah.
So
in
what?
front of it would have had you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would have to stretch for that. So when you had to hop inside the tank quickly, when the TC had to hop inside the tank quickly, it was right there.
Yeah.
And he can still traverse left and right and everything like that. And the system worked well and everything?
Yep.
Did you have any protectors in front, any metal protectors for
No.
the 50 though or anything?
No,
like
on the ACAVs, yes.
Yes.
But on the tanks, no.
No. Did all your tanks do that with the 50 caliber?
Everyone.
Everyone in the
Everyone.
company?
Yeah. Some of our tanks had 2 of them.
250 cals?
Yeah.
Both for the tank commander?
No, the one would be from the loader's hatch and one for the tank commander.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So in the front of the loader's hatch, was that welded also down
Yep.
there? And he had a box of ammo. Just take off the box, put the new box on.
Yep. Yep. And I'll tell you how that happened. When our tanks hit mines,
Yes.
this was kind of a scam or a racket, but we would combat loss all the weapons. On the mine report, we would say all the weapons destroyed.
Okay.
And that lets you keep your 50 caliber
Yeah.
and get a new one.
And get a new one. and
Now all of a
everything.
sudden you got 2 of them.
There you go. You also have a couple more 7.62s if you needed them.
Yeah, the coax, yeah.
Right. Now, did all your tanks have 250 cals?
No, just some.
Just the ones you were able to
Yeah.
to do and everything like that.
Yeah, we had one tank, 3, 4, I think, had a minigun mounted on it.
A minigun.
Minigun.
7.62 minigun?
Yeah.
On the loader's hatch or the TCs?
Loader's hatch.
Really?
Yeah, it turned out to be not practical because you just couldn't keep enough ammunition.
No, I mean,
So,
5 seconds you're out of ammo or something like that.
yeah, our unit scrounge, a guy named David Decker, he's gone now, bless his soul, but he had traded, I think he traded 250 calibers, M2s, to a helicopter unit and got a minigun in return.
Really?
Yeah. And
Well, I'm sure you went through official channels on that one.
yeah, I don't know how good the picture is, but I got a picture of the night we test fired that thing.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sitting there on the back deck watching them. It's just
Wow.
something else.
Okay, your 7.62 machine gun, was it an M73?
Yes.
How well did that work?
It worked
Overall.
fine. It worked fine. It was great for area fire when you
Okay.
didn't, if you didn't have a specific target, you just wanted to hose down an entire area.
Right. But-
Wonderful.
Did the weapon, though, mechanically work okay and everything like that?
Yeah.
Now, what about your M2? That thing had to sing. I think that's a beautiful weapon, the M2. And they worked well in Vietnam, didn't they?
Oh, it worked
The
great.
machine,
Worked
50
great.
caliber?
Yeah, as long as you didn't overheat and ruin the barrel.
Okay. Did you change barrels here and there then?
Yeah, we did. We carried 2 or 3 spare barrels.
Okay.
But, if you're in the middle of a fight, you can't afford to be changing the barrel.
No, you can't. And you can't change it if it's too hot and everything.
Yeah.
Did you have a handle on the barrel?
No,
It was just a straight
just
barrel
straight
and
barrel.
everything
Straight
like
barrel.
that.
I've seen them with handles.
I
We
have
didn't
too. I haven't seen that many photos with them, but I have seen them.
But even a handle wouldn't do you much good because you have to unscrew it.
Correct. And then you put it back in. You got to do headspace and timing. You
Yep.
got to go through all that
Yeah.
and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
The hold on a second. Did you ever work with Sheridans when you were with 234 Armor?
No.
It was straight M48A3s in your unit and everything like that, right?
Yeah.
And then the infantry guys, there were no Sheridans in that area or anything like that with you.
I don't think there were any Sheridans in the 3rd Brigade of the 1st Infantry at all. Quarter Cav had M48s like us. The only ones I think that had Sheridans was the 11th Armored Cav,
Okay.
down by us.
Okay. I see you there and everything. So what, anything else on the 48A3 offhand? Overall was a good tank.
Good tank. Great
worked
tank.
well.
Great tank.
So what type of missions did you perform in Vietnam as a tank unit, tank battalion?
Well,
You mentioned convoy escort.
yeah, we did a lot of convoy escort.
Okay, so what's a typical convoy escort mission then?
At a certain point in time, we would meet up with a convoy. The convoy would, typically we would change off on the run. Their current escort would pull off to the side of the road while the convoy was still moving. Our tanks, when they sighted the convoy, would start moving. And so they would cut into the column on the fly and keep going.
And just keep going, just like that.
Yeah. And typically, most of the time it was from Lai K up to just north of Thunder 3. And then the 11th Armored Cav typically would pick it up north to Thunder 3 and take it on all the way up to Lac Ninh. And before you get to Lac Ninh, there was another base camp called An Lac.
Okay,
And prior to An Lac, there was another base camp called Quan Loy.
okay.
Quan Loy was 1st Division. I don't know which brigade. And An Lac and Lac Ninh were 11th Armored Cav.
Okay.
Uh,
How long would you escort the convoy for? 20 miles, 50 miles?
let me think about this.
I mean, you were done in a
It's
day,
about-
weren't you? I mean, you would pick them up maybe at 12 noon and you were done by 4 or something like that? I mean,
Typically, it was in the morning, like 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, and the return was typically 2 o'clock, something like that, because you didn't really wait for the convoy to unload at the base camp that you finally got to. Usually, you were picking up yesterday's trucks that were already unloaded
all
yesterday
right.
to take those back.
Okay, so you could do a forward escort and then a return escort in one day.
Oh, yeah.
Easily, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the objective was always to get where you were going before it got dark.
Okay. All right, now how did you intermix the tanks with the convoy? You had a lead tank or two?
Usually one in the lead, a couple in the middle, one or two at the rear. If you had a full platoon, you might put 2 in the front. But,
Okay, so wait a minute. Was this a platoon escort?
Yeah.
Not a company level escort?
Oh, no, no.
Also, so first platoon could have a mission on Monday, second platoon could have a mission on Tuesday, or first platoon's got the convoy mission for the whole week.
Yeah. It could be 3rd platoon escorting convoys for the whole month.
Oh,
And we didn't even see 1st and 2nd platoon.
okay.
That's the way it was.
So if third platoon, if you guys are doing convoy escort for the whole month, first and second platoon could be doing another mission,
Oh, yeah, they could be out on
base camp or.
search and destroy.
So, not, before we go off this, but you didn't always operate as a company.
Rarely.
One platoon could rarely
Rarely. It was unusual to operate as a company.
for your missions and everything like that.
Right.
So almost all your missions were platoon level.
Yeah, exactly right. We were usually with an infantry company, usually a mech
Okay.
infantry company. But it was usually one platoon here, one platoon there, one platoon there.
All right. So for the convoy escort, you'd have a platoon of 5 tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any infantry with you?
With us is a tricky term.
Okay.
I mean, the infantry might pick the convoy up a little bit further
No,
down
I'm
the
talking
road.
about intermix with you
Yeah, in the convoy?
in the convoy for your stretch of 20 kilometers or whatever it is.
Yes.
Could you have an infantry squad or an infantry platoon with you?
Not leg infantry, it would be mechanized.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Do you have any other escort with you or anything like that? Any?
There were gun jeeps, MP gun jeeps.
They were
mixed
with
in
you
the
too?
convoy. Yeah.
Okay. So from your for the convoy escort from your pickup point to your drop off point, you just had the 5 tanks.
Yeah.
A couple of mechanized infantry 113s.
Yep.
And the MPs, and that was it.
That's it.
Okay.
Now, don't misunderstand. I mean, a lot of times if there was something in the air, something going on, the convoy would have air cover.
Okay. So you had air support. I didn't think of that.
Gunships, yeah, that kind of thing.
Hueys.
And the convoys many of the convoys had command and control choppers keeping an eye on them.
Okay.
So you could call in support instantly if
Gotcha.
something happened.
But I was just thinking that your convoy escort was a company level.
No.
I didn't realize that it was a platoon level and everything like that.
Nope.
So your platoon leader, your lieutenant's in charge of that, could be in charge of that convoy and everything. Whoever their chain of command is, he's at least in charge of your platoon and everything like that.
Yeah, it was rare for our guy to be in charge of the convoy because the convoy always had a convoy commander.
Correct. But I mean, still, your lieutenant's in charge of your platoon during
Oh,
that
sure.
mission and everything like that.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you talked. What other missions did you do?
Search and destroy, which was go
which-
out there and try and find the bad guys
Okay.
and ruin their day if you found them. Roam plow escort.
Roam plow. What is a roam plow?
Roam plow is a large crawler tractor, typically a D9 Caterpillar type tractor,
Okay.
with a special blade on it made by the Rome Company in Rome, Georgia.
Okay.
That's why it's called a Roam plow.
All right.
And their mission was to cut down jungle. And typically what they would do is they would cut down a grid square at a time.
Okay.
So we would escort them out to the start point, and they would just start cutting jungle down, and they would work in a square pattern, either
Right.
clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on the area. We would ride around the outside of the tractors, and if they came under fire, we would react.
Right.
I don't ever remember doing any recon by fire before they started cutting, but we might have done that. I just don't remember.
Okay. So they would cut down a grid square.
Mhm.
What would it be used for? A future base? Do you know why did
No,
they
it's
cut
to
down?
deny the area to
Deny-
the enemy.
Okay, so they're cutting down the trees or the brush and everything like that to
And-
deny the use of the enemy and everything like that.
Yeah, and frequently they would find base camps while they were cutting it down. Bunkers,
Vietnam, VC
North
or
Vietnamese
NVA or
and
anything
VC.
like that.
Yeah, yeah. And we'd collapse the bunkers or blow them up while we were at it.
Did you have a fair amount of those missions? I mean,
Roam
were there a lot of roam plows doing that in your area and
Oh,
everything?
yeah. The
So they went
they were called land clearing companies,
Okay.
LCCs, and each company had probably 20 or 25 roam plows.
okay,
And the way it would work is, we go to an area and meet up with the roam plows, and they would create a temporary fire base wherever they were, and then they would operate out of that fire base to do their cutting. And at night they'd come back to this fire base. We'd do the perimeter security.
okay.
They would do their maintenance, and heavy maintenance required on a roam plow at night.
Especially going through that area.
Yeah, and they would do their maintenance at night, so they'd keep us awake all night banging away. Sometimes we had artillery in the center, sometimes just mortars. But
So if they're going to cut down a grid square, how long would that take? A couple days?
a couple days, yeah.
And so like you said, you set up a little base camp and everything first. They go out, do their thing, come back at night in the base camp and the security there. Go
Right.
back the next day.
Yep.
Do their thing, come back another night if they had to and everything like that.
Yep.
So you get your resupply in the base camp,
Yep.
the refueling
Everything.
and everything like that. Now, what size element did you provide security for that? Was that a platoon again?
It was usually a platoon of tanks,
Right.
and almost always a company of mechanized infantry.
Okay, but again, it wasn't a tank company. It was a platoon,
Never.
your tank platoon on that and everything like that.
Never a tank company.
So they would knock out a grid square. Would they also go down a road that's already been kind of established or used and knock out some of the stuff along the roads too or anything? Or is it more of an area and not necessarily a route, but an area?
It was more of an area, and the fact is, Stephen, most of the roads in our area of operations had been defoliated on both sides
Okay, already?
already, sometime in the past.
Okay.
So that wasn't necessary.
Okay. And what other type of missions or anything like that?
Well, we used to do the occasional thunder run.
Okay, and the Thunder Run is?
A thunder run is an attempt to keep the enemy from using or mining a road at night. And what you do on a thunder run is you move at high speed from one point to another point, stopping intermittently to recon by fire, and just try and scare them off,
Try and scare them off and everything.
or make
like
them
that.
think you saw them and get them to open fire, and then the party's on.
Okay, so you started at one point, you did that, and you had an end point or something like that.
Yeah. Well, just to give you an example, frequently we would start at the north gate of Like Hay,
Okay.
and we would move up to Thunder 1
Okay.
and firing in between those 2 points, and then return to Like Hay. And you might do that all night long, depending on the situation. You might also do it, you might do it with 2 tanks. When those 2 tanks come back, you might send 2 other tanks to do the same thing an hour later.
So just 2 tanks could go out and do that?
2, yeah.
Oh.
And the same thing might happen in between Thunder 2 and Thunder 3.
Okay.
One of our platoons might be at Like Hay, one might be at Thunder 1, one might be at Thunder 2. So
Okay. Did you ever get return fire?
I never did.
All right.
I think some tanks did,
but not very
sniper
often,
fire.
you don't think? I mean,
Well, they knew. They're not stupid. They knew what
Right.
we were doing.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. What's something called a road outpost?
Oh, yeah.
The road outpost is
Outpost the road, Highway 13, for example. And again, here's Highway 13. It's a major convoy route.
okay.
And incidentally, the reason 1st Infantry Division was here and 25th Infantry Division was here was to keep the NVA from massing in Cambodia and
Okay.
attacking Saigon.
Okay.
They had to get through us to get to Saigon,
Okay.
and 11th Armored Cav as well. So we had this entire area in an arc.
Okay.
2 infantry divisions and an armored cav regiment. At any rate, road outpost was typically a daytime operation. We would set individual tanks off the sides of the roads to keep the roads under observation during the day. The theory being that the North Vietnamese could not ambush the convoy or get in place to ambush the convoy while we were sitting there because we'd see them.
Right.
And so we did a lot of that. And in fact, road outposts, when I wound up with 10th Armored Cav up here in the Central Highlands, Highway 19 right here, that was our main mission almost every day, was
Okay.
road outposts, to keep Highway 19 open from Queen Yan to Pleiku,
So would that be another platoon mission?
typically.
Could that be a company mission if it was long stretched?
It could. It never was, but it could have
Okay.
been.
But still a platoon mission, everything like that.
Yeah. Everything was platoons.
Yeah, that's that to me is just a little interesting and everything like that. So if you were going down a convoy and you received contact or something like that, what was the reaction that you can typically do or something like that? Did the tanks pull off to the side, provide, and then start shooting, identifying where it was coming from, and the convoy just held in place
Well, that was a snap judgment that usually had to be made by the convoy commander.
quickly?
Typically, we wouldn't stop.
Oh, you keep them going?
Because if we pulled off to the side of the road, or if we stopped and the convoy stopped, they're sitting ducks.
Gotcha. Okay.
Typically, we'd speed up
Okay.
and try and crash through the ambush zone. We'd return fire on the move. You'd
Right.
fire canister on the move, no problem. Same thing with the machine guns. But usually we would keep going. If there were other units in the area, they'd be called in to help, and they might, pull off a direct attack. But the convoy escort would stick with the convoy
Yes.
and usually keep moving.
Yes. So you would not stop and fire. You just kept moving as fast as you could. Well, you would fire on the move, but you would get out of that ambush zone as soon as you can and everything like that.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Not to digress, but there was one ambush on August 12th, 69,
Okay.
where we were actually outposting the road, 3rd Platoon, and the convoy was being escorted by Quarter Cav and I think some units from 2nd to 2nd, and we were with Charlie Company 2nd to 2nd. But anyhow, what happened is the convoy came along, and there were a couple of culverts, which is a lower area, typically wet,
Yeah.
and so there had been sewer tubes, I guess you'd call it,
Right.
put in there and then paved over or laterite over.
Right.
They blew 2 culverts, and they caught a big chunk of the convoy in between the 2 culverts. At that point, it was a mess because the convoy couldn't move. They couldn't go forward. They couldn't go back. They could go
Yes.
off to the side of the road, but not very far, and they might get bogged down. There was a lesson learned there about never let that convoy get stopped. We were very lucky that day because we were on both sides of the road, second to second, and us. And so they couldn't get at the convoy. But if we hadn't have been there and the convoy was stopped like that, it would have been a big, big fiasco.
Okay.
So.
And do you remember any of the operations that you were in or anything like that? Do you remember one called Atlas Wedge?
You know,
Was that in Michigan?
I remember the name.
Okay.
I don't remember the operation. I'm assuming, it must have been some kind of anvil hammer operation, probably in the Iron Triangle. But
Okay, was that maybe a search and destroy mission or in that area or something like that?
probably. Hammer and anvil is when you set up a blocking position, and then you have another group of tanks or APCs driving forward towards the blocking position.
Right.
The theory being you're going to drive the enemy into the blockers.
Okay. And what about the, you said you were in the rubber plantations? The
Michelin.
Michelin rubber plantation?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what's a rubber tree? You don't cut down a rubber tree, do you?
Yeah.
How do you get the rubber?
Yeah. A rubber tree is a tree, I don't know, 30, 40 feet tall. Kind of looks a little bit like a palm tree, I guess.
Okay.
The bottom 15 or 20 feet, there's no branches. It's just a bare tree trunk, maybe no more than a foot in diameter, most of the ones we saw. And they get the rubber by hammering a spigot into the trunk of the tree,
Okay.
turn the spigot on, and rubber sap comes out.
And they catch it in a bucket?
They catch it in buckets, yeah. And they change the buckets every so often. The Michelin rubber plantation was huge. We operated in there quite a bit because the North Vietnamese operated in there quite a bit. It was a bad area for tanks because the trees were close enough where if you had to back up in a hurry or turn around in a hurry, you were bound to knock some of them down. I don't know if it's true or not, but we were told the U.S. government had to pay for every rubber tree
I wouldn't be surprised.
that we knocked down, and we knocked down a few.
Did you ever spend the night in the rubber plantations?
Not
too and
in
everything?
it, no.
Not in it, no.
No.
So you'd go in there, do a mission, but you pulled out of it and everything like that.
You would always, if you were stuck out at night, you would always try and find a clearing to set up. Never inside the jungle or rubber.
Or the rubber tree plants?
It's
or
too
anything
easy
like
for them to sneak up.
that? Okay, you talked about, you already mentioned convoy escort and rumplow security and everything like that. What about at a base camp or fire base or something like that? Did you created some of your own temporarily at night, and did you ever go to a permanent one with like an artillery fire base or some type of base or anything
Yeah.
for a night or something like that?
I guess you could call Thunder 1, 2, and 3 permanent.
Okay.
They were there a long time before I got there, and they were still there when I left.
Okay.
They were artillery bases more than anything else. Right on Highway 13, all three of them, right on the highway, and they were there to keep the road open. Sometimes if we were doing convoy escort, we might be at Thunder 3, might be at Thunder 2, drive north or south to pick the convoy up.
Okay.
We'd also pull security for Thunder 1, 2, or 3. Not just us, but infantry, tanks. Base camp, Like Hay being an example of base camp. Like Hay, by the way, was headquarters for the 3rd Brigade.
Okay, and you were part of 3rd Brigade, 1st Infantry Division.
Right.
When you were OPCON, the 1st ID and everything like that. Okay.
3rd Brigade in the 1st Infantry is called the Iron Brigade. That's the heavy brigade.
Okay.
To this day, that's the heavy brigade. When we were in base camp, usually it was strictly for maintenance. So we might have a 3-day maintenance stand, called a maintenance stand down. That's all you do is maintenance.
Right.
Sometimes the first sergeant would take advantage of things and stick us on perimeter guard at night, which was in a bunker instead of being on a tank.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you have an M16 then?
An M16 or maybe an M60 machine gun.
What about a grease gun?
No, we didn't use grease. We had a couple of grease guns. Each tank had 2 of them,
Okay.
but they were pretty much useless. It's 45 caliber,
Right.
and that slug is so heavy that if the target's more than 20 feet away, good
Right.
luck
Now,
hitting it.
if you hit the guy, that's
He's down for the count.
right. But you got to be able to reach out, so to speak. So you carried an M16
Yeah.
or an M60 you had with
we
you
were,
on the others?
We were all issued M16s.
Okay.
Yeah, even though we were tankers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would pull some type of guard though at the.
Bunker guard. They call it bunker guard. Usually it was the rear echelon types that did that, but if we were in for more than say 2 days, the first sergeant might decide to give his guys a break. That would be the rear echelon guys, and put us
you
out
guys
there.
on it.
Yeah.
Wow. Now let's say you were pulling guard, not guard necessarily, but security at a base camp, and you were in the tanks. The tanks were spread out around. Did you put anything extra protection or anything on your tanks at night?
No, well, let me go back just a second. We never used the tanks at base camp, fire bases.
Go fire bases.
Fire
That's what I
bases,
mean. Okay, at the fire base.
Yeah, we carried what we called RPG screens. Some
Okay.
of us called it spare shrapnel. It was a chunk of cyclone fence. I
It
don't
was
know,
basically a chain link fence,
chain
right?
link fence. I don't know, 6 feet high, whatever it is, the standard size. And we carried engineer stakes, metal stakes.
Okay.
And so when we were setting up at night, we'd pull the tank up next to where we wanted the screen because we had to stand on a tank, use a sledgehammer to pound the stakes in, and then tie the RPG screen or the fence to the stakes, and then put the tank behind it.
Right.
And the object there is to detonate any RPGs or Ricky rifle rounds or anything like that before they hit the turret.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did every tank do that?
Every tank, every track.
So every 113 or every ACAV would do
Everybody.
that too and everything like that.
Yeah.
Did you ever get attacked with an RPG at night or anything like that? did you see of them work at night or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I did.
Did the screens work?
September. Well, I don't know that I ever saw a screen hit with an RPG.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
I've seen them go over the screen.
Oh, so the guy missed, so to
He
speak.
missed. Yeah, we had one go right over our tank, and we were all
did
sitting
you?
on the turret when it happened. So it went right over us, all the way across the perimeter, and detonated on the other side, right over the screen.
Okay, so you never saw one get hit by.
Not that I recall.
I'm wondering, and I'm just taking a wild guess, if he knows you had a screen that he was just trying to get right above the screen and try to hit you or something like that. I don't know.
Might have been, or he might have been scared.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm sure he was scared and everything like that.
Yeah, there is a story. I don't know if it's true, but there's a story going around about a monkey jumping on the RPG screen and doing a cheetah routine one night. But it wasn't our platoon, so I don't know if it's true.
Oh. Okay, go back to the fire bases that you're at. Now, at a fire base, could be an artillery fire base.
Yeah. They're all either artillery or mortars.
Mortars.
Typically artilleries, though.
Okay. When you were on a mission, whether it was convoy security or roam plow or search and destroy, you said sometimes you had choppers up in the air. You had air support if you needed it. So you had helicopter support.
Yep.
Did you have some aircraft too? Fast movers?
Yeah. There were a number of occasions we used F4s.
F4s, okay.
Air Force F4s out of, I think they're out of Benoit, or there's another big air base right by Saigon. I can't remember that. Tan Son Nhut.
Okay.
We also had a couple of occasions when we used A-1 Sky Raiders. It's a big prop plane,
Yeah.
carry a ton of bombs.
Okay.
Couple times. Most of our air support was Cobra gunships or Huey gunships, what they
Okay.
call a hog.
Okay. And then you also used artilleries to support
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and mortars. Now, mortars could be internal, though, too, with you if the mortar tracks went with you sometimes. If the mortar tracks went with the infantry or something like that.
Yeah, we didn't have, our mortar tracks were with headquarters company back with 25th Infantry. But you're right, the infantry had mortar tracks. I think, I never figured out why some units had 4.2-inch mortars and some had 81s.
I don't know either.
I don't know, but yeah,
Now,
either,
the light guys usually had the 81s.
is that what it is?
Usually light infantry, because 4 deuce, though you can carry it, is usually the track-mounted one.
Yeah.
So 4 deuce is usually a track-mounted one. 81 is the lighter guys stuff.
Yep.
Just rule of thumb. I'm not saying that's perfect like that, but that's
Yeah.
kind of like it is. But if the infantry company was with you, or you were attached to an infantry company, he could have his own mortars with him or something like
sure.
that.
Yeah.
And the mortars could be at the base camp, fire base,
Yeah, at the fire base.
or you had artillery. 105 artillery. Do you know?
Some had 105s, some had 155s. Thunder
Okay.
3 had 155s,
Okay.
and it was kind of a running joke because the 155 battery, it was a towed battery, not an SP, self-propelled.
Right.
Towed, which is kind of obsolete, but it was a National Guard battery. And what we used to always laugh about was all these guys joined the National Guard hoping to avoid Vietnam,
Right.
and the Army moved that National Guard artillery unit to Vietnam.
Really?
Yeah.
So that whole 155 battalion level maybe
Yeah, it was a battalion. Yeah.
was a National Guard unit.
Yeah.
And so their guys, as best as you know, maybe rotate through while they were there, do a 1-year tour or something like that, or
Oh, yeah.
something.
I'm sure.
Something similar to that.
yeah.
Do you remember what unit it was?
No, I might be able to look it up. I don't know.
Maybe that's very interesting. And
Yeah.
everything. And you said they were out of where?
Well, I don't know. It was National Guard, but I don't know what.
No. I mean, we're in Vietnam. What
Oh,
base camp?
Thunder 3.
Thunder
Thunder
3. So
3.
that National Guard artillery unit was out of Thunder 3. I may do a little research on that and find out.
Take a look.
That's pretty good. So at the when you went to not the fire base but a base camp, you were doing maintenance.
Yeah.
So you pulled maintenance on the engine, check oil. Well, you do that your normal stuff and everything like that. Check track tension. Do a lot of tank maintenance. You do weapons maintenance, clean the weapons and everything like that.
Yeah. Well, we clean weapons almost every night,
Did
no
you
matter
everything
where
like
we
that?
were.
Okay. If you had to pull an engine, would you do it at the base camp then?
If the opportunity was there to do it in base camp instead of out in the field, like
Right.
Thunder 1 or 2 or 3,
Right.
yeah, like
And you would do that too.
quarterly maintenance.
Yeah, I was going to
queue
ask you about
maintenance.
that, queue maintenance or something like that.
Yeah. Pull them out, change the oil, clean all the mud out.
When you weren't pulling the bunker guard or I forgot what you said,
Perimeter guard.
perimeter guard, did you sleep in barracks? Did you have
Yeah.
beds?
Like Hay had buildings.
Okay.
They were on concrete pads, and they were wooden buildings up till about waist height. Wood like slats, if you can picture that. From the top of the wood slats all the way up to the roof were screens, so you got a good breeze through there. They had a tin roof. It wasn't PSP, but it was like corrugated steel roof.
Okay.
So it was real noisy when it rained or something. And in there, we had, unlike a lot of units just had cots, we actually had, in B Company, we actually had beds like they had back at Fort Hood.
Oh.
The old thin brown steel
Yeah.
things.
Okay.
We actually had those.
Okay, so you had your designated area at that camp and everything like that.
We had a Foot Locker.
So would you leave for a mission for a week and come back? Would you leave for a mission for 3 weeks and come back?
Usually
Could you do
we were-
multiple different missions for 2 weeks and then come back?
We'd usually, it depended on the mission.
Right.
I mean, if you were doing convoy escort out of like, hey, you were back every night. But B Company, the 3rd Platoon typically would, like on a search and destroy mission, you might be going for a couple, 3 weeks.
Okay.
In 11th Armored Cav, you'd go out for 90 days at a stretch.
Okay.
And so you pretty much lived out there
All right. So B Company had your area in your
in like A.
in Like in your base camp. So you had a company area.
Yep.
And then each platoon had their platoon areas.
Yep.
And you could line up your tanks in the motor pool
In
and
the
everything
motor
like
pool.
that.
Yeah. We were right
And
across
so
the
your
street.
first sergeants worked out of there.
Yeah.
The company first sergeant
Yeah.
did. Company commander worked out of there.
Yep.
And obviously they worked missions with the infantry. Okay, first platoon on this date you'll move out there. Third platoon you'll move out there, and everything like that.
In like A, we were directly across the street from the headquarters of the 1st to the 16th Infantry.
All right. Now, do you have a mess hall? I mean, was it
We
eating
shared the-
better with the base camp?
Well, we shared the mess hall with 1st to the 16th.
Okay.
So our cooks actually worked in the infantry mess hall, but we ate in the infantry mess hall too.
Right.
So
Right. So how was the food over there?
not bad. Not
And out in the field, what did you have?
bad.
Sea rations?
Many days and nights sea rations, but the big advantage, one of the big advantages of being a tanker is almost every night, if you're on an operation, a search and destroy or something like that, they have to fly fuel out to you.
Yes.
And so as long as they have to send that big helicopter anyway,
Okay.
typically our guys would put hot food on the chopper
Good.
and drop it off.
So are Mermite cans?
In Mermite cans,
The three sleeve Mermite cans and other stuff too?
Yep.
So, okay, let's go back out to the, hold on a minute. Let's go out to the field though. You've got, what type of helicopter would fly in maybe?
Chinook.
Okay, so you got a couple of Chinooks maybe flying in fuel. How did you get your fuel? I mean, did they drop blivets?
Yeah.
Fuel blivets?
Yeah, it's 500-gallon rubber blivets.
Okay.
The Chinooks would drop them. If we had lift capability, they would lift the blivets and we would gravity feed the fuel down into the tank.
Into the tank,
One at
gravity
a time.
fed. So you had the blivet up in the air,
Up in the air.
just gravity feeding into the tank.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you didn't do that, but you had an M577 in the area with a generator,
Okay, an M577 is a big 113 command vehicle, and it's
Yeah.
got a generator.
and it's got its own generator, and so we would have a electric fuel pump.
Okay.
Usually that would come out with the blivets, and we would just power the electric fuel pump with the generator, and then you just fuel the tank normally, just with a regular
Okay,
fuel hose.
so the electric fuel pump actually came with the blivet.
Yeah. Well, not part of the blivet.
Not
they
part
would
of it,
send
but
out
with,
with it.
the chopper and everything like that. You didn't carry one with you, anything like
No,
that.
we didn't.
Now, you said you have basically platoon missions, so they're just refueling at 5 tanks.
Right.
And you're refueling the 5 tanks. So was one blivet enough for the 5 tanks?
Typically, but you might need a second blivet for the infantry, for their tracks.
Okay.
So
Okay, but when it comes to the tank platoon, one blivet was usually enough. I mean,
Yeah.
you were not, when you got refueled, you weren't on empty.
Oh,
you may
no,
have been
no.
half full or something like that.
When our tanks got half full, you start panicking.
Okay, so even before that, and then again, it depends on your mission. If you're doing an outpost, you're not using a lot of fuel.
Right.
If you're doing the convoy security, you're obviously using more fuel and everything like that.
And you use a ton of fuel busting jungle.
Yeah, a lot of slow down, push forward, slow down, push for that. That uses
High
the engine a
rev,
lot
low
more.
rev. Yeah.
Right. Now, you also said, though, when you're on a convoy security, many times you go back to the base camp, though,
Or the fire base.
or the fire base, and you can get refueled right there and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the blivet would come in there. So you never had a hand pump or anything
Never.
like that.
Never. We're tankers. We don't
I
do
know
work
that.
like that.
I gotcha. I got you right there.
Yeah.
Now, so with the fuel came food. So you got some hot chow,
Yeah.
maybe the dinner or something like that, or,
Yeah.
or whenever it showed up. Did it always get resupplied by chopper in the daytime?
Yeah, almost always.
Always in the daytime.
Yeah.
So they'd have hot chow for you and everything like that, and ammo.
If we needed it, yeah.
Okay, would you ever get 90 millimeter ammo off a Chinook then if you had to?
Yeah, all the time. Not when you say off it would come in a sling typically below the Chinook.
Okay.
Yeah. All the bulky stuff would be sling loaded below the
So
Chinook.
would the blivet be sling loaded?
Yeah, you could have, the blivet was always sling loaded.
All right.
And sometimes you could have a second sling below the blivet or above the blivet. You could have daisy chain
Oh, really?
sling loads. You could have ammo. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, the
And-
blivet was never inside.
Yeah,
the
I didn't think of that earlier, but you're right. But the ammo would also be sling loaded.
Yeah.
The food would not be.
No,
The
food would be
gear
inside.
Now, would all the ammo be sling loaded with even small arms?
Yeah.
So they did not want to carry ammunition inside the Chinook, did they?
They
I mean,
didn't-
there may have been some mechanical reasons, engineer reasons that they do that. I don't know.
Nobody wanted the chopper on the ground any longer than it had to be.
Right.
So they don't want to be running back and forth pulling ammo off the inside of the chopper.
Oh, I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah.
So, but when
The
he,
Chinooks are very valuable.
yes, they are. So when you're gravity feeding, well, hold on a minute here. Did they drop the blivet on the ground?
Yep.
They did.
Yep.
And you said if you had lift capability, you would lift it up and do it.
Yep. If you had
So-
a cherry picker.
Cherry picker, okay. And then if with the ammunition, they would hit the ground and then just release it.
Yeah.
And after everything that's sling loaded on the ground's been dropped, chopper's gone.
Gone.
Now they would hand you your food and everything like that.
Yeah. Unless you had stuff that you had to put in a chopper to go back to base camp, including people. You know, if you had people that had to go to rear or something.
Right. Okay.
Then he might drop the sling loads. If he had food, he would have to land anyway. But even
Right.
if he didn't have food, but he had to pick up some passengers,
Right.
he would still land.
But he could be out of there in 5 minutes. The chopper could land for 5 minutes and take off?
I would say less than a minute.
Less than a minute.
Yeah.
So he's landing. the sling loads are all dropped.
Right.
He lands, gives you your food. 2 people jump on, you're gone.
Gone.
And everything like that.
Yep.
Okay, so what happens to the Blivet later? Do they come and pick it back up or something?
Yeah, next day. Next day, it might be in the morning. If we have to move out, then they would come back in the morning and pick up the Blivet
Okay.
and the Mermaid cans and all that
So
stuff.
could they actually drop off the equipment and then return back, grab the old stuff, and pick it back up?
They could, but usually it was in the morning when they came back to pick up all that stuff.
They just came and picked it back?
Yeah.
Picked it back up.
And you know, now that I think about it, Steve, I think the reason they came back and picked up those Blivets is they only had so many of these
They had to
Blivets.
refill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't dawn on me until just now. Yeah. But we were well resupplied. I'll tell you a funny little story. When I first got to Bravo Company, I was on the CO's track, and every night the CO, if we were out in the field anywhere, including Thunder 1, 2, and 3, he would call the rear for resupply, and he'd always be ordering cases of pretzels. Pretzels. And after a couple days of not seeing any pretzels but hearing him order 'em, I said, "What are pretzels?" He said, "That's the beer."
Oh.
It was against regulations to have beer in the field,
right.
so we called it pretzels.
Was it cold?
Most of the time it was cold because they also brought ice out to us, big blocks of ice.
Okay.
Yeah, and every tank, by the way, had its own Mermaid can
Okay.
tied to the bustle rack.
Okay, I've seen pictures of that and everything like that. All right, so resupply, you were pretty good. You had your fuel, your ammo, and everything like that.
Yep.
What about spare parts? Any problems with spare parts?
Yeah,
Did you have to cannibalize any tanks?
yeah, a lot of that went on. It wasn't so bad on my first tour.
Okay.
On my second tour in 10th Armored Cav, I had an M48A3 up there, and my Novak, you remember what a Novak is? Turret traversing
Oh, gotcha.
motor went out,
Yeah.
and I couldn't get one. I kept ordering, screaming for it because I couldn't use power traverse.
Right.
Had to put somebody down there and manually traverse.
In the gunner seats.
In the gunner seat, and there was no gunner seat.
Exactly. He's sitting on sandbags.
Yeah. So yeah, parts were a problem on the second tour, and that's because everybody was being pulled out.
Right.
So,
Exactly, and everything like that. Okay, so you're still back at a base camp, a fire base. Okay. You've set up your RPG screens.
Mm-hmm.
You're pulling your guard duty. So did one guy stay up at the tank and the other 2 sleep or something like that?
yeah.
Kind of every 2 hours or every hour, depending on the situation?
Yeah, it was usually every couple hours. The way it would work is everybody sit up there till dark. Typically 8:30, 9 o'clock. Everybody would sit up on the top of the turret.
Okay.
Once it got dark, you would wait till a good time to start. Like if it got dark at 8:45, you would start guard at 9 o'clock.
Right. Okay.
So from 9 to 5, 8 hours, divided by 3.
Yeah,
That's what the
divided by
guard would
3,
be.
and once in a while 4 if you had the 4th guy.
If you had the medic, yeah.
Okay, the guys on guard duty, did they have night vision goggles?
No.
Did they go inside the tank and look at the night sight in the commander's night sight? Did you have that on the tank?
Well, we had infrared sights.
That's what I'm talking about.
But
That's
you
what I
have to use the infrared searchlight.
mean. Okay,
Nobody was going to use a searchlight.
you got it. What about goggles or even a starlight scope? Did you have any of that stuff with the tank? I know
Not with the
infantry guys
tanks.
infantry guys had some of that, but
No, we didn't have them.
so the guys on guard duty are really just with their eyeballs,
Yeah.
looking at night.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And they're on radio.
Always on the radio.
You're on the radio. You're looking at night as best as you can.
Yeah. We didn't wear CVCs on guard at night, but I
Yes.
think every single tank had, I don't know if
Speaker?
you remember those little speakers.
Yeah, you had little speakers you hooked up
Yeah.
and everything like that.
Yeah. And they'd call for a sit rep every hour on the hour, the TOC would,
Yeah. All right.
just to make sure you were awake.
Make sure you're awake and everything's going okay and everything like that. All right. So what time did guard duty end? Maybe just before
Usually-
daybreak?
Yeah, daybreak.
Just before daybreak. And did you ever go through the mad minutes?
Yeah, we did mad minutes fairly often.
Okay. And what is a mad minute?
A mad minute is having all the vehicles on the perimeter. I shouldn't say just vehicles. If you had bunkers with infantry, everybody on the perimeter
Okay.
would open fire at a specified time and cease fire after about a minute. So they might call on the radio. The TOC might call on the radio and say, all perimeter units, mad minute at 1 a.m. or 0100 or whatever. Promptly at 1 a.m., everybody'd open fire. Typically, the tanks would fire a couple of canister rounds, 50 caliber.
Okay.
It was kind of fun, really.
Okay.
And the object of a mad minute was to keep the bad guys honest. If they were
Right.
trying to sneak up on you, and you opened up with a mad minute, right away they'd think you saw them, and they'd open up, and now we know where they are.
Yeah. Did they ever open up, or did they keep quiet, or just leave, or something like that?
I don't ever remember getting a response to a mad minute.
Okay. Now you said 01. Did you do mad minutes in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
or at daybreak?
I don't ever remember doing them at daybreak.
Okay, so it was kind of in halfway through the night, so to
Yeah.
speak.
1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, something like that. And they use different times all the time because
Yeah, you don't want to,
you don't want to set a pattern.
not at all, or anything like that. And you went up against, obviously, you went up against North Vietnamese Army, the
Mostly.
regular army, and the VC.
Some.
What's the difference? How could you tell uniform, equipment,
Yeah, North Vietnamese.
intelligence information? I don't know.
The North Vietnamese were as well equipped as U.S. soldiers. Yeah, they didn't have tanks. Actually, they tried that once at
They had a
Lac Vey,
few.
but it didn't work.
Yeah.
But they had good weapons, good training, good equipment, uniforms. I think they were well fed, highly disciplined, and they were organized into battalions. VC typically ran in small packs, squads, or even smaller. Fact of the matter is, when I got there in December '68, the VC were almost extinct. They had
Okay.
they had really gotten a pounding in Tet of '68,
Yes. Yes.
and they were almost wiped out.
Right.
So pretty much all that was left was North Vietnamese.
Right, and from what I've read and what I heard, the VC, any of them that were left, were just integrated into the NVA.
Into the
really,
NVA, yeah.
right? Okay. So, uniform-wise, equipment-wise, MVA was well equipped and everything like that.
Just like
What about
the
weapons? NVA had.
AK-47s,
Okay,
RPD machine
what about
guns.
the VC? Did they have the same weapons?
They'd be running around with. They might a few of them might have AK-47. Some of them might have SKS, a bolt-action rifle. Some of them had old hunting rifles. Some of them just had grenades.
Okay.
Poorly equipped, but
Okay.
again, Steve, we didn't catch too many VC. It was mostly MVA.
Did you catch any?
The infantry that we were with caught a few.
Okay, so did you see some captured VC or
Oh, yeah.
NVA, anything like that? And then they get shipped back to the rear and go through all that stuff.
They get put on a chopper, and that's the last we know about it.
Right. Right. And so, anything else with the MVA? VC said the MVA was very disciplined, well organized, and battalions and everything like that.
And I give the MVA all the credit in the world. Anybody that would attack a tank with a rifle.
Yeah. So they would attack a tank, and they had the RPGs. And you also talked about a recoilless rifle. They had 75 millimeter recoilless rifle, whether the VC or the MVA.
Mainly the MVA.
Had the rifle?
Yeah, the VC mainly were RPGs, mines,
Okay.
stuff like that. The North Vietnamese, yeah, I don't know if the Ricky rifles were left over from the French.
It could be.
Those might have been French 75s. I don't know.
I mean, in all seriousness, from what I know, the NVA and the VC used anything they found too.
Yeah.
From back in the 50s with the French or anything like that. For all I know, they could have used Japanese weapons that were left there if they picked anything up or anything like that. So what about a mine? They'd set up an anti-tank mine?
Most of the mines were homemade. I suppose there were a few Russian mines, but they used to be able to make mines and booby traps out of anything.
Right.
If you left a sea ration can laying around, they would take the can and pull a pin on a grenade and put the grenade inside the can with the spoon still on it, and then run a tripwire and tie it to a tree, and you'd walk by and pull the grenade out of the can, and boom, off it would go.
Did you encounter any of those or anything like that?
The grunts did.
The grunts did.
Punji pits,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Mines, yeah, we hit lots and lots of mines.
Okay, so what would happen if an anti-tank mine, and I'm not talking about a little personnel mine, I'm talking about an anti-tank mine. If your left track drove over the mine, how bad was the track?
It would blow the track, probably 3 or 4 track blocks. It might take out a road wheel and the road wheel arm. You'd have to replace that.
The idler arm too?
The idler arm. And on some occasions, it warped the hull.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the engineers had templates. So when you hit a mine and it knocked the road wheels off, then the engineers would come out and put the template on the hull. If the hull was warped, the tank's a combat loss.
Right.
That's it. You get a new
You're
tank.
gone. Exactly.
Yeah. So we didn't have too many hull warps,
Yeah,
We did have a lot of idler arms knocked off, roll
believe
wheel
that.
arms, that kind of stuff.
it was always the front part of the tank, correct?
Yeah.
You never backed up over a mine or anything like that.
Well, there were some mines called what we called tilt rod mines
Okay.
that you could hit with the middle of the tank. You didn't have to run over it with a track.
That's true.
And it was a rod sticking up, and if you pushed the rod either way, it would set the mine off.
Right.
We saw a few of those. I don't know that any of our tanks hit them. I think the grunts might have hit one or two.
Okay, so really you hit the pressure point one, the pressure mines.
Pressure detonated. Yeah.
So if you're out in the field, let's say you're providing roam prowl security, and you hit a mine, you guys internally within your platoon pull the tank out.
Yes.
All right? Could you call for a maintenance backup with the M88, or did you do a lot of that? Or to fix that, could you do that out in the field?
We could fix it in the field. If it just knocked off a roll wheel arm and the roll wheels
That's simple.
and cracked the torsion bar, we could pull the old torsion bar, put a new one in, and if they would fly a new roll wheel arm out to
gonna
us
ask
and
you
new
that.
roll wheels. Well, each tank carried 2 spare road wheels to start with
Okay.
on the back.
But you didn't carry any torsion bars.
No, we didn't carry torsion bars, but we could get them. They could fly them out on a Chinook,
Okay.
and we could fix it in the field. You know, each platoon had a mechanic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you had a tank
the-
mechanic with you?
Yeah, what they did is they took the headquarters platoon mechanics, and
Right.
they assigned one to each platoon. Sometimes those mechanics were in the field with us. Sometimes they'd be out there with us, sometimes they weren't.
Okay.
But if we had a mechanic with us, he could help. But,
Right.
you know, most of us guys knew how to replace
Yeah,
a
well, I'm
torsion
going to
bar.
say out in the field, tankers, not that tankers don't work on tanks, but out in the field in your area, you probably worked on a lot more mechanic level stuff than you normally would have, I would think.
Yeah, I'm sure we did.
What I'm talking about, 10 level maintenance is tanker stuff, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then you get 20, and then you get 30, higher echelon maintenance.
Yeah.
But out in the field like that, you're replacing torsion bars.
Oh, yeah. that was-
You're doing that tank. I know tankers help out and everything, but you
Yeah.
did a lot of that yourself.
Yeah, that was common. And the other thing, sometimes we'd get in situations where we would, if the torsion bar was snapped and the roll wheels were destroyed, we would pull the spindle up with a tanker's bar and
Yeah.
tie it up
Okay.
and just go without that roll wheel for a while.
Right. You can also short tracked if you had to, too, and anything like that. I don't know if you
could.
ever did that, but
Never short track, but certainly we knew how to do it.
yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the NVA, and we talked a little bit about food and ammo, especially fuel and everything like that, and about your pretzels. And we talked a little bit about vehicle maintenance, everything like that. What about discipline in 234 Armor overall? I mean,
We didn't really have any problems.
okay. I've heard a lot of stories, and I don't know how much I believe a lot of the stories. I just don't know how widespread all that stuff was about bad discipline and fighting or anything like that. But overall,
I got to tell you, Steve, I think most of those problems happened back in base camps with the rear echelon types.
okay.
They were able to smoke dope every night and shoot up heroin. In the field, even if you had somebody smoking a little marijuana, they never did it at night or anything like that. If you were
Okay.
on the perimeter,
Nothing like that.
nothing.
When you guys were out in the field, you were out in the field. I mean, everybody was serious, top business.
Yep.
And when you're at base camp and everything, fixing and working on the tanks, you guys did what you're supposed to do and everything, didn't you?
Yep.
To get ready. Seems like you're out in the field a lot, though.
Quite a bit. We stayed out there.
Yeah, quite a bit and everything like that. And what about just living in Vietnam? Heat, bugs, monsoon, the rain. How about boredom? Were you ever bored out there? Or
You can get incredibly bored
yeah,
sitting on a road outpost in a sweltering heat, or when the roam plows got down to a small section left to cut, and it was stupid to keep driving around them, we would just stop and set up, in a circle around them. And,
Okay.
And it would be hot, hot, hot,
yeah,
dusty from them.
right.
It was awful.
What about the bugs? Lots of bugs.
Mosquitoes would carry you away.
I believe that. Snakes.
Snakes, yeah. We had one, I told my wife about this. We had one tank, I think it was Decker's tank. A snake, somebody saw a snake fall off a tree and go down into the driver's hatch. And everybody jumped off the tank and nobody would go back in the tank.
Was the driver in the driver's hatch?
Yeah, and he got out in a hurry. So yeah, but the mosquitoes were the big thing. You know, malaria was
Oh yeah.
a big concern over there.
Oh yeah.
We had to take a let me see if I get this right. We had to take a little white malaria pill every day, and then once a week we had to take a big orange one
Really, you did that every day and everything?
every day. And the medic would stand there while you swallowed it, you know,
Okay.
because it made some guys sick.
Did it work? I guess. Did you know of anybody that picked up malaria?
I don't know of anybody in our unit that got malaria.
Okay.
I suspect a lot of the infantry might have got it, you know, because they were drinking dirty water and stuff like that. The leg infantry, not mechanized.
Okay.
I mean, we were civilized, you know.
You guys are civilized.
Yeah, if we were out of beer or low on ice, we didn't even want to move, you know.
Okay, go back to a second. With the tank, do you have a personnel heater?
Never used it.
Okay, never used it. Did you ever heat up food on the back deck of your tank or the
No.
personnel heater or anything like
No,
that?
we carried C4.
Oh, C4, you're right.
Yeah, we use C4 to heat C rations and stuff like that, or to
Okay.
heat water for C ration coffee.
Okay, so you can boil water if you had to
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and
yeah.
clean it. I mean, have clean water and everything if you had to.
Yeah. We never had to. You know, every tank carried 5, 10, 15 gallons of water.
Okay,
We never ran out of water.
okay.
Um,
And you can carry boxes of C rations too and everything like that if you had
yeah,
to.
we carried several cases each tank.
So you
use.
so you use the C4 though to heat up some C rations here and there.
Oh, yeah. We probably use more C4 to heat C rations than the engineers use to blow stuff up.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that. Also, when you're with you were with mech infantry, so you were not with light infantry at all when you went first ID.
A few times we did not like to work with them.
You didn't like working with them?
The leg infantry?
Yeah.
No,
Very
because
different.
well, their idea of resupply was way different from our idea of resupply. We were with this one battalion, 1st of the 28th. It's called the Black Lions. Really good outfit in the 1st Infantry, but it's a leg unit. And we were working with them, and this one company we were working with, and they got all excited this one afternoon. I said, you know, what are you guys so happy about? And they said, getting resupplied tonight. I said, oh, good. I was counting on a little beer or some ice or something. Their idea of resupply, the chopper shows up, it's not a Chinook. It's a slick.
Okay. A slick meaning a Huey.
A Huey, and the guy lands, and they kick off 5 or 6. They had these clear plastic water cans. I don't know how many gallons, a couple, 5 gallons maybe. I don't know. They took 5 or 6 of those off there, and 5 or 6 cases of C rations and a bag of mail, and he left. And they were happy because that was resupply, and we were mad.
You need your resupply and everything like
Yeah,
that.
and we're saying, where's the beer? Where's the odd food? You know.
So how many times did you work with those guys? 2, 3 times maybe.
Yeah, just a few times.
Okay. Did you ever carry ammo for them or anything? Did you give them some ammo if they need 7.62 or 5.56?
Oh, sure. We shared ammo with everybody, including the mech infantry if they got low.
Mech guys can carry a little bit too, though.
Yeah,
But if they got low, you guys easily helped each other out. And obviously you would and everything like that.
yeah.
And go back to the rain, the monsoons. Did you ever hit the monsoons?
Yeah, we stayed out in the monsoon.
You stayed. What do you mean?
We stayed out in the field during the monsoon.
Okay. So was there a difference in crossing any little streams? How about rice paddies? Would you cross rice paddies?
Well, for the most part, we stayed out of rice paddies.
No matter what?
In the monsoon.
Okay.
In the dry season, you had to be really careful. I told you that story about getting 3 out of 5 tanks stuck that one day.
Right.
That was what we thought was a rock hard dry rice paddy, and in the middle it was wet.
Okay.
For the most part, we stayed out of rice paddies, but mechanized units in Vietnam didn't fool around very much in rice paddies anyway.
Right.
They stayed in the jungle or on the roads or outposting the roads
Okay.
or rubber plantations.
Okay.
We could go in all of those areas, monsoon or not.
Okay.
So it wasn't really a problem.
So it wasn't a big issue or anything like that.
No, it was just that you were wet all the time.
All the time. It could be 95 degrees and you're soaking wet.
Yeah.
And you're out in the field and there's no clean.
Yep. And yeah, you'd be on guard at night and it'd be raining like crazy and you're cold and you're wet and you're just...
Was it hot during the day and got a little cold at night? I mean, even a little temperature drop at night would make you shiver and everything like that.
It was pretty amazing up in the Central Highlands because at night it would get down to like 70 and you'd be freezing.
Yeah.
Absolutely freezing.
I absolutely believe that. All right. You left Vietnam. You did a year tour, right? 1 year tour.
I actually got A little bit less than a year because I got to go home just before Christmas. It's what they call a Christmas drop.
Okay.
You know, if you were supposed to go home within a week of Christmas, one way or, after Christmas, they would actually let you go home before Christmas.
Okay. Before we leave Vietnam, so to speak, any other comments about 234 Armor? Proud to be a dreadnought and everything like that?
Great unit. Great unit. I go to the reunion. We have a reunion every 2 years.
Right.
Rose and I, even though we're tankers, Rosie, my wife, even though we're tankers, we hang out with the mortar platoon of all people.
There you go, really.
But yeah, there's a bunch of B Company guys that go to the reunions.
Okay.
And I see them, including Lieutenant Breedlove.
Good.
So yeah, we enjoyed it. It's a great unit. It was a great unit then. It's a great unit now.
Right. And you came to My American Legion back in 2008?
9.
Was it 9? Okay, 2009, you came to My American Legion in Carroll Stream, Wheaton Carroll Stream,
Mm-hmm.
and we gave you the steak dinner and everything like that.
It was great. It was wonderful. You
Yeah,
guys were
it was.
great
I
hosts.
would have, if I wasn't running around in circles feeding you guys or talking to, or going into the kitchen or running somewhere, I would have sat and talked with you a lot more. But I was just running around trying to do everything. So we hope you had a good time in 09 and
Everybody loved it. Thanks
and
again
everything
for
like
that,
that.
Steve. That was great.
And just for the unofficial record, when I went back into the Army, I had orders for 334 Armor.
334.
334 Armor, Erlangen, Germany, 1988.
What division?
1st Armor Division.
No kidding.
Erlangen. So when I arrived, they had already reflagged the 270 Armor.
And that's
So I
okay.
never really officially was in 3-4 or anything like that. But you left Vietnam in 69.
Mhm.
And where'd you go?
Got out of the
Where'd you
Army.
fly into?
Uh,
Frisco? San Francisco?
no, we flew
Seattle?
into whatever airport's in Oakland.
Oh, Oakland. Okay.
Oakland. Travis
Travis?
Air Force Base.
So you flew into Travis Air Force Base. Were you out of the Army?
I got out of the Army. We went from Travis to Oakland Army Depot, I think it's
Right.
called.
Okay.
And well, I guess they call it mustering out. I don't know what they call it.
Right.
We got discharged there at Oakland Army Depot.
Okay. So you never went to another unit in the States. You actually did your time at Hood. You went to Vietnam, and after Vietnam, you signed out.
That's it.
That was it.
That's it.
And then what'd you do after that?
And I went home, got a job, went to, started again in community college.
Okay.
Still didn't like that.
Okay.
Still didn't know what I wanted to do. And then one night I happened to turn on the news, and what do I see but 3rd Platoon of Bravo 234 in Cambodia,
Okay.
my platoon.
And that was May of 70?
Something like that.
Yeah, 1970. Okay.
So I got it into my head that maybe I was going to make a career in the Army. So I decided to go back in.
Okay.
So I went down and talked to a recruiter, and I think the recruiter was in Melrose Park. I talked to the guy, and he wanted me to sign up for 4 years, and I wouldn't. I would only go for 3. And I told him I wanted to be guaranteed Fort Knox. And he said, well, if you sign up for 4 years, I'll guarantee Fort Knox. If you sign up for 3 years, I can't guarantee it, but because you're a tanker, almost for sure you'll go to Fort Knox.
Okay.
I signed on a dotted line, and 2 weeks later, I was in Augsburg, Germany.
And you signed up for 3 years.
3 years.
You went to Augsburg, Germany. Okay.
I wound up, and when I got to Augsburg, I was assigned to the 70th Armor of the 24th Infantry Division.
70th Armor, 24th ID. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it was 2 weeks after I got there to the 70th Armor, they stood down the 24th Infantry and converted it to the 1st Infantry.
Okay.
And so I wound up in I always get these mixed up now, either the 63rd Armor or the 66th Armor. I can't remember which one.
You said 1st ID?
Yeah, 1st Infantry.
Okay, 63rd Armor was in 1st ID in Germany.
Was?
Yes.
Okay, so it
So
was 63rd.
I think you were 63rd.
So I was in the 66th Armor in the 2nd Armor Division.
Oh, yeah,
Hood.
66th Armor was 2nd ID. 66th Armor Regiment was 2 AD, 2nd
Yeah.
Armor Division. 63rd was with 1st ID. That is
Okay.
correct.
So I wound up with them. Germany was tough duty. We spent a lot of time in Grafenwehr and Hohenfels,
Right.
the training areas.
And what year was that? Is that 70?
70.
Okay.
And we had immense racial problems.
Okay.
We had people being beaten, stabbed, all kinds of stuff. There was no discipline.
Okay.
I'm not sure that that the 63rd Armor would have lasted 5 minutes against the Russians. I don't know. But anyhow,
So how long were you there for?
7 or 8 months.
Okay. Were there other Vietnam tankers with you?
Yeah.
There
I
were.
ran into a guy from 2nd and 34th.
Okay.
A guy named Spencer that I knew from 2nd and 34th, Vietnam.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, but how long were you there again?
It was 7 or 8 months.
Okay. And where'd you go after that?
Vietnam.
You went to Vietnam. And what unit did you first hit in Vietnam then?
When I got to Vietnam, I was assigned to 10th Armored Cavalry.
Okay.
When 10th Armored Cav first went to Vietnam, it was part of the 4th Infantry Division.
Okay. Part of 4th ID.
By the time I went there on my second tour, 4th Infantry had gone home, but 10th Armored Cav stayed, and they were assigned to, directly assigned to 1st Field Force.
First
They
Field
reported
Force.
to 1st Field Force. That's these folks right here.
Okay.
So they had no higher divisional brigade or division or
All
anything
right.
like that.
Yeah, they went right to the field force.
Right to the Field Force.
All right.
We were the, as far as I know, I think we were the last armor unit in the Central Highlands. I'm not positive because 1st of the 1st Cavalry.
Yeah, 1-1 Cav.
Yeah, 1-1 Cav. I'm not sure.
Their 1st Armor Division, actually.
Yeah, are they? I'm not sure when they came out because they were in the Central Highlands also.
Okay.
But anyhow, 10th Armored Cav was at a place called An Khê, and it's not shown on the map, but it's, I'm going to guess it's about 10 miles west of Quy Nhon
Okay.
on Highway 19. And we did, our main mission there was keeping Highway 19 open from An Khê to Pleiku.
Gotcha.
Pleiku was still at that time a major base, although I'm not sure what army units were left in Pleiku. But anyhow, our 10th Armored Cav had the area from the An Khê Pass to the Mang Yang Pass,
Okay.
a distance of, I don't know, 10 or 15 miles through hilly country.
And what type of vehicle were you on there?
M48, I had an M48A3.
Tank
I
Commander again?
was a tank commander.
Spec 5?
No, by then I was a buck sergeant.
Full,
I was
Hard Strike
converted to
percent.
a buck sergeant in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you went back in, you didn't lose any rank or anything, did
No,
you?
no, I wasn't out long enough.
Yeah. Okay. So after 10th Cavalry, you went to where?
When 10th Cav was pulled out,
Okay.
I didn't have enough time in country to go home to the States, so they sent me down to 11th Armored Cavalry.
11th ACR.
And 11th ACR operated out of Fuloy, which was, Fuloy's not on the map either.
But general area?
Same general area as I was on my first tour.
Okay.
From like I don't know, 10 miles southeast of Like. That's where the 11th Armored Cavalry headquarters was. It wasn't the entire regiment that was still there. It was only 2nd Squadron. The 1st and 3rd Squadrons had already gone home. And all the heavy tank companies had gone home, or the medium tank companies.
So what squadron were you in?
A 2nd Squadron,
2nd Squadron?
2nd of the 11th,
211 Armored Cav. Okay.
G Troop, Gulf Troop.
Golf Troop.
And they didn't have any M48s left.
What'd you have then?
The Cav troops had Sheridans and ACAVs, obviously. And although I agitated for a Sheridan, they wouldn't give me a Sheridan because I wasn't Sheridan trained.
Okay.
So I wound up on an ACAV. So I was back to being 11 Bravo for a while.
Okay. Were you a vehicle commander?
Yeah, track commander on an ACAV.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the ACAV again had the typical 50 cal up front, 60s in the side and the
Yep.
rear and all that stuff
Yep.
and everything like that. Sandbagged?
Heavily sandbagged on the
Okay.
inside.
Okay. And a lot of the missions you did your second tour were very similar to your first tour?
Exact same missions, and in some cases, the exact same areas. Back,
Okay.
back hanging around, some hanging around on Highway 13, and in fact, just before Thanksgiving of 71, I guess it was, we did a 2-day run from the Hobo Woods down around here all the way up to Lac Ninh. in
You're
a
back in
2-day
your,
period.
back in your own hometown and home area and everything like that.
In fact, we did
You remembered a lot of that, didn't you?
Well, we stopped overnight in Like
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. You know, we stopped in our old Bravo 234 motor pool.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Okay, what about the NVA and the VC at that time period? Any difference?
They were leaving the Americans alone.
They were.
They knew we were pulling out. They didn't want to start any trouble. They wanted us out.
Okay.
So
For the most, were there any firefights at that time period then, or very few, or almost none?
in 11th Cav, we didn't get in any firefights. We had the occasional sniper fire. We leveled a couple of wood lines trying to get a sniper.
Okay.
But that's really about it. And mines and booby traps, you know, those may have been there for years.
They
Who
could have been
knows?
there when you were there the first time.
Could have been. Oh, that's another interesting observation. In 11th Cav, we were in the Hobo Woods one day, and we went crashing through the brush. It wasn't heavy jungle. It was only about 8 or 9 feet high, and we ran directly into, we didn't hit it, but we ran right up on an M48A3 that was burned out and rusting.
Really?
And that was one of our old M48A3s that caught fire one night because a trip flare,
One of Bravo companies?
one of Bravo, our platoon, a trip flare fell from the top of the turret. Somebody had already set up not a trip flare, a hand flare. Somebody had set up a hand flare ready to fire with the cap on the bottom where you just hit it and it fires the flare. Somebody had set it up that way and laid it on the top of the turret. And the tank went over a tree stump or something, and it rolled off the top of the turret down into the turret and fired.
Really?
Went up and hit the top of the turret roof,
And bounced back down?
bounced back down, and now it's on fire inside the turret. And very quickly it shut the ammo off and everything else. Nobody was hurt. Everybody jumped off.
Oh my God.
But that thing burned and burned and burned.
And you saw that again?
I was there.
No, I mean...
Wasn't my tank, though.
No, I know that. But when you went back, that was it?
Yeah, that was it.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't read the bumper numbers,
You knew it was it.
but that was too much of a coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. It may still be there right now.
Probably
Who
is.
knows?
Well, they probably, you know, by now it's probably one of these or a selfie
could
stick
be.
by now.
It could be.
Yeah.
That's true there.
Rosie's got a selfie stick. It's probably part of my tank.
It could be. Or that tank anyway or something. What about the discipline in your ACR?
11th ACR?
Yeah, 11th ACR. Was there any difference discipline from your 234 to 11th ACR? I mean, everybody knows they're on their way out.
Yeah.
Everybody knows they're leaving. You can't help that. I mean,
There was a little bit more of a discipline problem, but it was always confined to just 2 or 3 individuals that drank too much or did dope
you had
too
that.
much.
You have that almost everywhere.
almost everywhere. And you're right. Everybody knew we were going home.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to be the last guy shot in Vietnam.
Right.
Overall, though, the 11th Armored Cav was a good unit. So was 10th Armored Cav, for that matter.
Well, it's the same with them also. So are you pretty happy that for your Vietnam time periods, you were in pretty good units overall?
I think so, yeah.
And probably 3-4 was your best, maybe because you were there the longest and everything like that.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
and so when did you leave that second tour? Second time?
At the end of March
72?
72, yeah.
Okay. Well, when did you get over there? Did you 71? You went over there?
The 10th Cav, yeah. I want to say August of 71 or...
Okay, about around August of 71 and then March of 72 you came back.
Yeah, it wasn't a full tour because the units all went
You're
home.
pulling out and everything like that. Where did you fly into on your second tour back? Back to Oakland? I heard a lot of guys flew into San Francisco and Seattle. So
I think it was Seattle.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
it could have been.
SeaTac sticks in my head for some
SeaTac
reason.
Airport is the Seattle-Tacoma Airport and everything like that.
I think it was Seattle.
And then you, from Seattle, you signed out again,
No.
right?
No.
Okay.
No, I still had time to go in the Army.
And where'd you go? Did you finally make Fort Knox?
No. I never saw Fort Knox until I went there with USABAT. No, I had orders for Fort Hood, but I had to leave first. So from SeaTac, I flew to Chicago,
Okay.
home on leave, and then I drove to Fort Hood. And when I got to Hood, I was the first Cav had been sent to Fort Hood. I don't know what unit they stood down.
Oh, 1st Armored Division went to Germany.
Okay, so
And
first Cav.
second Armored Division stayed at Hood. And 1st Cav was created or took over or reflagged maybe over in Fort Hood.
Yeah, they was reflagged from First Armored.
I think you're right. Okay.
But I wound up in an armor battalion that most people have never heard of, and that was the 13th Armor.
13th Armor, yeah.
13th Armor. The reason a lot of people never heard of 13th Armor is the Army, they've done this 3 or 4 times now. They change it from 13th Armor to 13th Cavalry and then back again.
Yeah,
They've done this 2 or 3 times.
right.
But it was 13th Armor.
Yeah, it's one of the original armor units, too, going back to the 40s, early 40s.
Is it?
Yes,
Yeah, didn't
part
know.
of the 1st Armor Division.
So I was a tank commander there. I made E6 there.
Okay.
And aggravated the battalion commander because I made E6 and then decided to get out. So he wasn't happy about that.
And how long were you at Hood?
Well, I got out in June of 73, so
All right, so June of
Little over a
73,
year.
you got out, and that was the end of your 3-year tour.
that's it.
So you got out of Hood, you drove back home
Drove home.
to where? Where'd you drive back to your next time? Back to
Elmwood Park.
Elmwood
Illinois.
Park.
Yeah.
And what'd you do after that? After you got out?
I went to work for International Harvester.
Okay, and
Yeah,
what'd you do there?
I wound up a purchasing agent and then a purchasing manager.
What's purchasing mean? Purchasing raw materials or something like that?
Yeah, I was buying castings, hydraulic pumps and valves, stuff like gears.
Around the world? Did you travel around the world?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. I also went to college at night. Did that for, God, a whole bunch of years. I don't know, 6, 7 years, something like that.
Okay.
Still don't have my bachelor's degree,
No?
but I'm retired now, so I don't care.
How long were you at International Harvester?
10 years. Did 10 years with Harvester. I did 10 years with International Jensen. Remember the loudspeaker people? Jensen?
Yes. Okay.
Them. And then 10 years with a company called MagnaCraft, now owned by Schneider Electric.
Okay.
And that's it. Then I retired.
Okay, were you living in Elmwood Park?
When I retired, no. I stayed in Elmwood Park only a couple years, and then I got an apartment. I was in River Grove, I think it was, for a while. And then Schaumburg.
Okay.
Nowadays I'm in Lindenhurst, up near the Wisconsin border.
And you're fully retired and everything.
Yep, and happy.
And happy.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to stop right here and let the camera run because I want to ask you something if you want to answer it or not. How was you treated when you came back to the States? Do you mind talking about that at all?
No.
Okay, so we'll continue right here. So after your first tour coming back from Vietnam, how were you treated in the States? Was any special at all or anything like that? Any problems or?
I didn't have any problems. Most of my friends had been in the service as well.
Okay.
Not all of them in the Army, some in the Air Force, but and so I tended to hang out with other veterans.
Right.
I didn't have any trouble with the anti-war.
Anything like that at all? Nothing? Okay.
No.
Now, in your second time coming back, same thing?
Same thing. In fact, on my first tour, when I came back and I came in through Oakland Army Depot, and then I had to get, I wanted to fly home out of San Francisco, and so we took a cab or something from Oakland Army Depot to San Francisco Airport, and when I got to the airport and checked in with, I think it was American Airlines, getting a flight to Chicago.
Yeah.
And they sold me a ticket right away. And right after they handed me the ticket, they said, wait a second, tap, 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 tap. And they said, give us the ticket back. And I gave them the ticket back. And they turned around and handed me a first class ticket
Oh, really?
on them.
Now, were you in Class A's or B's?
Class A's.
Okay.
Class A's. Everybody came out of Oakland Army Depot, everybody that was getting discharged in Class A's.
Okay. And I have heard, and I believe this, in some cases, they told the guys coming back from Vietnam they had to put on civilian clothes. They were not allowed out of the airport in uniform and everything like that.
Really?
I have heard that before. Not a lot, but I have heard that before. And I don't remember where I heard it. And the guy who had said it over the TV, it may have been a documentary, and I'm believing it. It was a really good documentary. Him and the other guys felt really bad that they were told that they had to put on civilian clothes and everything like that.
Never heard that one.
But you did not. You had your Class A's and hopped on the plane to Chicago and landed at O'Hare and Class A's and everything like that. Okay.
Yep.
So you had no issues with anybody else or anything like that or anything like that. Okay. This has been great and wonderful for you to do this. You've got the last comment, last words. Anything else you want to add or say about your time in Vietnam and the Army or?
No, I can't think of
anything.
can't think of a thing, Steve. I appreciate the opportunity to get a little history on the record out there.
That's
So,
good. And this will be on record with the Pritzker Military Library and everything like that.
Great.
I appreciate you coming down to Chicago to do this. And I know you're going to have a fun day going down Michigan Avenue and everything like that.
We're going shopping.
You're going shopping. Outstanding. And again, thank you very much.
Okay.